Exactly. And that comes with finding a therapist who you feel comfortable with. You know, not everybody's going to feel comfortable with just any therapist. Like, I know we're both individuals, people of color, so, you know, we'll probably feel more comfortable with a therapist who's of our ethnicity than with, let's say, per se, a Caucasian person. That's no shade to a white therapist. That's true, though. But I wouldn't feel comfortable speaking about my life as an African-American male to someone who's Caucasian.
Yeah, because sometimes it feels like you're doing more explaining than it's relating to, like, they understand. You don't feel understood or, like, so I agree.
And then on top of that, we're people. We don't like being judged. I don't want to sit here and tell somebody, this is my POV, and I feel like they're just like, oh, wow. You know what I'm saying? Taking back by it. Exactly.
That's true.
So, for example, with foster care youth, there are specific modalities that have been demonstrated to be more effective with that population than other modalities. Now, it's not to say one's better than others. It's just that the things they emphasize and highlight is kind of more priority. So for foster youth, they do a lot of empowering and encouraging based. Because, you know, being a foster system, that is a very exhausting system to be in. You have a slew of things that you have to experience at a young age that's hard to process. You can't, no matter how old you are, how long the foster care system, I don't think it's a very logical situation for a child to go through that. So, you know, with the foster youth, you really want to empower them. You want to give them that chance to say, you know, they don't get to choose who their therapist is. They don't get to choose necessarily.
And we didn't choose the birth parents. We don't choose the other parents. We don't choose for home or placement. So, yeah, we don't, it feels like oftentimes we don't have a voice.
Yeah.
And it, like, you learn how to shrink back. You learn how your opinion doesn't matter. Nobody stops to ask you. So the fact that you said that, I agree. Because it's a lot.
It is a lot. It is a lot. And I'm glad that, like, you know, we're getting to the place where people can express that it is a lot. Because I don't want anybody to sit here who's gone through a traumatic experience as being in foster care to sit here and like, oh, no, it was fine and dandy. Like, let's not neglect your mental health. We don't have to. We don't have to do that any longer.
Welcome back. I am so happy that you joined me here for another episode. This is a continuance of my episode that I was doing, identifying feelings and labeling those feelings so that we can better understand what we're going through on the inside and how to handle it, how to communicate to the people around us, because far too often, we take things out on those that are closest to us because we don't know how to communicate on how we feel. So my goal with this episode is for you to get a perspective from a therapist. I truly admire what he do, and I want him to introduce himself. This is Mr. Jordan.
All right, thank you for the introduction, Ms. Marie. I appreciate the opportunity to be here. So, as you know, she's expressed, I've been working with her children for some time. So I am a qualified mental health professional. I recently graduated with a graduate degree in clinical mental health counseling. I've been working in the mental health field since 21, so I think that gives me about 8 years of experience in the field. So worked with a lot of different populations, been through a lot of different settings, just been getting a lot of experiences. So I feel confident within my own skills and, you know, the things I work with these kids and things like that.
And I have witnessed it. I truly, honestly, I was, like I said, I was expressing to you before we started, I was expressing to my coach that I truly love your style of therapy, like the way you approach it, your conversations, you allow it to be a natural conversation. It's a mutual thing. It's not forced. So yeah, I really love it.
I appreciate that.
So I do have a question because you are a person of color. You're black, right? So,
yes, ma'am.
Okay. You are a therapist. You seem calm. So was this something normal in your house?
No.
Okay. I'm just asking, like, did it become a love for it? Or was it conversations for you? Or how did you get so calm and then therapy was your thing? Or
man, that's a whole, man. Let me see what's start with that. So the house, I grew up from a single mother. So, you know, with that, there comes a lot of, mother has a lot of emotions, a lot of things going on, and she doesn't have the time to really deal with those things. So, because she's always busy work, so the expression and frustration and anger gets shown in many different ways, things like that. So, all those things were things that I kind of picked up on. So, similar sense, I was someone who was very responsive, very immediate. I felt a type of way, I was in your face within like 5 seconds of you doing it.
Okay.
So, but just, having that life experience and then going through my own therapy and going through my own journey of kind of figure out how to handle these emotions and whatnot.
Okay.
Then I got to undergrad. I did an internship at a juvenile correctional facility. It was like an intense lockdown scare for juvenile youth in the, Pennsylvania, Maryland, Virginia, DMV area, and New York.
Okay.
So a lot of intense kids who come from low socioeconomic income areas, who have a lot of family trauma, a lot of family gang ties and things like that. It's a very intense environment. But just being in that environment, it's nerve-wracking when you first get there, because you hear about these kids, they do this, they don't do this. But you feel hypocritical on moments then to go against some things I say. So, and that was, I guess, another big meaning. It's like, you can't just be teaching these kids stuff you don't do. That's not.
So you had to practice what you preach, as they say?
Exactly.
Okay.
At the bare minimum. At least that way, it helped me feel a lot more confident and comfortable when I'm talking about these skills.
Okay.
Because now I'm like, all right, now I'm not just talking about a hypothetical I just read that works. Now I have experienced this works. I have previous experiences, previous work experiences, that show me that these things are beneficial. So now I'm like, okay, so like now I've got too much evidence for me to go against these things at this point. So I know today you kind of want to talk about like emotions, how we can identify those things.
Yes.
And before we spoke, I'm just going to hand this to you actually. Before the recording, while we were speaking, we were talking about how people have a difficult time with understanding and communicating their emotions. Oftentimes, from at least my experience and what I've seen is, sometimes people just don't know the definitions of what their emotions are trying to communicate with them. So from this handout, I changed you a bunch of different emotions. They kind of identify what that emotion is trying to express to us. Okay. Our emotions oftentimes are trying to communicate things to us, and that communication should get murky if we're not really in tap with them. So for anger, that's a good example. Some symptoms or way we show anger, it can be very similar to fearful, anxiety. If you think of like things like heart rate, if you think about the thoughts we have, you think about the actions we engage in, they look very similar, but they each have their own different thing they're trying to express to us. So if I'm feeling angry, but I'm trying to understand and express the emotion as if it's fear, it's not going to really be an appropriate way to attend to these different things.
So if I'm feeling angry, where in my body I feel that anger? Yeah,
so there is a plethora of ways we kind of identify those things. So you have the sensations like you mentioned, things like, how our heart rate is going. That's kind of the main giveaway I always talk about is your heart rate. That's going to be the main giveaway. Things about the body sensations, feelings. Are you feeling hot? When we get angry, we tend to feel a lot more hot. Stress in our shoulders. When we're feeling angry, we tend to hunch up and harden up. Just in our speech, when we get angry, we tend to speak a little bit faster. So a lot of these different presentations in our day-to-day, we might not see them, but they're present kind of expressing or showing that emotion. In addition to that, there's other aspects like our thoughts. We all know when we get mad, our thoughts are completely different than when we're sad or hungry or so on and so forth. And then on top of that, the last thing is the behaviors or actions we engage in. So let's say anger again, that's what we've been using. So someone says something to me I'm not the biggest fan of, and I'm sitting down, I'm feeling the heat and the energy I get from anger, and my leg as the behavior starts twitching and bouncing.
I do that a lot. I thought it was normal.
I'm not trying to shun any of that or anything like that. Because there are some instances where we do just kind of have our legs out. It's kind of just a natural soothing thing we do. But what are we trying to soothe in that moment in that sense? So is there anger there? I mean, that could be a presentation of it. But again, the leg tap by itself, it's not just a clear signifying for anger. It's just kind of one way to help us understand that. It's getting the three different parts kind of connected together. So hearing or understanding what my thoughts are. So again, someone says something mean to me. My head's thinking, man, I don't know who the heck they talking to. They're not talking to me like that, surely not. And, that's kind of getting me more riled up. And as I'm having those thoughts, my heart rate might start going with it. And I'm still sitting down, my legs start tapping, I'm realizing I'm cracking my knuckles, I'm feeling hot, I might start sweating a little bit, I might start squinting my eyes, really getting a good look at this person. All those different presentations are expressing that anger. So in that moment, there's three different things I can look at to see how I'm feeling. I can check in, what's my thought content right now? That's a clear giveaway. What is my body sensation going up? If I'm feeling myself tense when we get mad or angry, we tend to harden up and tense because that's an emotion we have to get ready for. Sometimes fight or react type of thing. So I'm tensing up, I'm hardening, and sensations, again, heart rate's going. my breath, am I taking deep, full breaths, or am I shallow breathing? Am I feeling hot? Am I cooling myself off? Or is my skin, for example, one thing I know when I get angry, I clench my fist, veins start showing. So that's a clear, for me, that's an easy indicator. I'm like, all right, maybe I need to relax for a little bit. Things like that. But just kind of being mindful of those things kind of help us check ourselves and regulate ourselves. We're able to see, okay, I'm getting a little hot right now. Let me go cool off for a moment, come back, and then have this type of interaction at a later time.
Okay. Yeah, and I like what you're saying, because I oftentimes feel the feelings before, and mainly with my children, I have to learn how to communicate. So how would somebody communicate in the midst of anger? How would you be able to communicate that?
So especially if this is something like trying to, regulate anger, something that is newly trying to improve on, work on, I would express in those first moments, the emotions we feel, they're their most intense when they arise. So in those moments, maybe not try to have that conversation right at the onset of that emotion. Kind of give yourself some time to let the emotional experience kind of de-escalate, and then have that conversation about the stress. Similar to, an easy way I think of it is, if someone's overwhelmed, you don't want to send them into a situation where they start being a public speaker after that. They're going to have a whole nervous breakdown. Give them some time to get themselves together, then let them go have their speech. So same with anger. If you're feeling that anger intensity, give yourself a moment, sit on that anger, cope with the emotion for a little time being, and then later come back and have that conversation. And because our immediate interpretations are sometimes not aligned with what's actually going on. So it's just, that's just life though.
Like for foster children, we tend to have a lot of negative emotions. So first of all, how do I identify like what is a feeling and what is an emotion? If somebody was asking me like the feeling and emotion, how would I separate the two? Is that the same thing?
Feelings and emotions, I would say they're both similar. They say the same similar purpose. That in the sense of it's a response to something, and that response is trying to signal something to me. Someone thumps you, you're gonna feel upset. Why? That's an injustice to you. Someone says something crazy, you're going to be upset. That's an injustice to you. You did nothing to receive that uncraziness or things like that.
True.
So it's really just the response we have to scenarios and situations. And throughout the lifetime, sometimes we develop certain habits that become a lot more routine than other things. So if, let's say, I'm in a home scenario where it's always loud and like my family and I are always arguing, this type of thing. When I go to a different setting, I'm going to demonstrate that type of reaction that I've seen, and I'm going to demonstrate that type of reaction I know. Is that appropriate for the situation? Who knows? Each situation varies. But I'm going to demonstrate what I've known and what I've been responding to as my emotional response, I guess I should say.
Let's say a therapist is listening that has to deal with foster children, or any child at that, for that matter, because my children are not foster kids, but they do have a sense of loss. And what is this? What if you're not going to be there? Can I trust you? That sort of thing. So I think that's common with a lot of children. What would be the best approach for a therapist and a child relationship?
Meeting the kid where they're at. You have to say a lot of times for kids, the experiences they're having, this is their first time experiencing these things. So a lot of grief or loss or heartache, they're still in the midst of experiencing their most intense heartaches and in the process of still trying to go through the development of being a child and then try and navigate themselves in a world that's ever changing, and they can never be too sure of themselves. One day people think highly of them for something, next day someone might think lowly of you for the same thing. That's going to throw off your whole sense of self and your self-identity. So for children, it's really just meeting them where they're at, giving them that grace that they are children, and they're just trying to figure it out, like even adults, most adults, and then just being honest with them, and being a sense of, I'm here to help you wherever you're at and where you're trying to go. I'm not trying to necessarily guide the direction you grow into. That just happens naturally. We kind of talk about areas that you want to see improvement in. What are your thoughts on these things? What are your parents saying, or foster parents, or guardians, whomever? And then from there, maybe take a collaborative approach for goals and kind of how to navigate that space. But for the first beginning with kids, let it be kid. Let them guide it. Let them talk about whatever they're interested in. Let them get into whatever. You want therapy to be a safe space for them to feel like they can talk about anything. It doesn't have to be therapeutic related. Now, you can sprinkle therapy things in there because that's kind of part of the job, but it was still, if they like sports, we'll talk about sports. I can find ways to integrate therapy sports.
So you're building like a rapport with them, just a trust-based lifeline so they can open up, and then you can go deeper
Exactly.
into the work that you need to do. I like that, and I truly do like it. I'm not just saying it because I'm the interviewer. I truly love it because, like I expressed to Mr. Jordan before we started, my sister and I were talking, and I know that a lot of foster children who have spoken to me, they expressed to me that therapy feels forced. And it feels like you don't have a relationship. It feels like somebody's trying to tell you what's wrong with you and not listening. But I have noticed that therapy over the years has evolved. So for someone who might be struggling with the idea of, oh, it's not cool, or my family doesn't do it, how would you tell them to go about it?
So to get... It's a tricky line because, at the same first point, you can't force anybody to do anything that they're not really engaged in. Yeah. All you can do is speak upon the benefits of therapy and have them explore is the benefits or the things that are, could be beneficial therapy. Is that something that's appealing to you, one? And on top of that, is that something that you really want to engage in? The therapeutic process is a two-way street in that sense. Okay. Yeah, it takes a therapist to make it engaging, to make it seem like an open and safe environment, but it still takes an individual to lean into that type of environment.
Like any relationship.
Exactly.
It has to be both parties willing and able to communicate and express.
Exactly. And that comes with finding a therapist who you feel comfortable with. Not everybody's going to feel comfortable with just any therapist. Like, I know we're both individuals, people of color, so, we'll probably feel more comfortable with a therapist who's of our ethnicity than with, let's say, per se, a Caucasian person. That's no shade to a white therapist. That's true, though. But I wouldn't feel comfortable speaking about my life as an African-American male to someone who's Caucasian.
Yeah, because sometimes it feels like you're doing more explaining than it's relating to, like, they understand. You don't feel understood or, like, so I agree.
And then on top of that, we're people. We don't like being judged. I don't want to sit here and tell somebody, this is my POV, and I feel like they're just like, oh, wow. Unless they take back by it. Exactly.
That's true. That is so true.
So having that aspect, and then just kind of seeing that therapy has evolved in so many different ways, as you mentioned, especially since the pandemic.
Yes.
You've got therapists. I'm sure this has probably been going a long way before I've been doing it, but you got therapists in the home. You got virtual therapists in clinics, inpatient, outpatient. So you have a wide variety of things you could get into. And then even within that, therapy itself has so many different modalities, so many different specializations for specific and unique things. So for example, with foster care youth, there are specific modalities that have been demonstrated to be more effective with that population than other modalities. Now, it's not to say one's better than others, it's just that the things they emphasize and highlight is kind of more priority. So for foster youth, they do a lot of empowering and encouraging base. Because, being a foster system, that is a very exhausting system to be in. You have a slew of things that you have to experience at a young age that's hard to process. You can't, no matter how old you are, how long the foster care system, I don't think it's a very logical situation for a child to go through that. So, with the foster youth, you really want to empower them. You want to give them that chance to say, they don't get to choose who their therapist is. They don't get to choose necessarily.
And we didn't choose the birth parents. We don't choose the other parents. We don't choose home or placement. So, we don't, it feels like oftentimes we don't have a voice.
Yeah.
And it you learn how to shrink back. You learn how your opinion doesn't matter. Nobody stops to ask you. So the fact that you said that, I agree. Because it's a lot.
It is a lot. It is a lot. And I'm glad that we're getting to the place where people can express that it is a lot. Because I don't want anybody to sit here who's gone through a traumatic experience as being in foster care to sit here and oh, no, it was fine and dandy. Let's not neglect your mental health. We don't have to. We don't have to do that any longer. So I think that's another aspect of it, is just people being vulnerable and being ready to generally have that conversation about these things. Because in therapy, though I can make it as fun as I want, I'm still talking about somebody else's real life experiences and traumas. So that has to be something you feel comfortable with not only speaking to me about, but also kind of going through that own process for yourself. Because a lot of times these might be things, like you said, suppressed. Like, who knows the last time you thought about certain aspects that might have come with that. So it's a whole slew of things, but it's a beautiful process. It's a beautiful process. It takes a period, but that's the part of it.
Definitely. Okay, so I'm a mom. I became a single mom. I was a single mom first. I got married and then, had my children. And then I was a single mom again. So dealing with my children, I wanted to do it differently. And I felt like it was important for them to know that therapy was an option. We didn't have that conversation growing up, and I just felt like therapy was this thing you didn't speak about, or nobody had medication. I hear it today where a lot of people are like, back in my day, there was no ADHD. You just sat down and like the belt came out or the look, or so we didn't talk about mental health.
Yeah.
It was just your mama gave you a look and you, I guess, sat down. Yeah. So, but for my children, it wasn't working. And I'm big on, if it's not working, that is the definition of insanity. You're doing the same old thing, you're trying to get a different result, and it's not going to happen. So I gave them the option to, say if they wanted to do therapy or not. We had a conversation. My partner and I, gave them all of the benefits of it, and they all decided that they wanted to do it. So we did it. And it has been a blessing. I'm going to say that because I'm going to do an episode with my son. He agreed to do it, and my partner, so that you guys can have a glimpse of my life with my children. I wasn't perfect, and I was learning, and I wasn't my best self being a single parent trying to figure it out. So because we're talking about feelings and emotions, I would like to know if there's a single mom out there watching, what can we do to help our children? Because oftentimes they don't know how to express it, or they, don't know how to communicate, or even if they do, sometimes you don't know how to receive it, So what can a single parent do for their children to say, okay, yeah, that's anger, or that's sadness, or depression? Because I think, too, if I'm not throwing a lot at you, I think it's a lot of times we call everything depression. So instead of saying they're sad about something or communicating, like, oh yeah, he's depressed, and everything seems to be about depression, and it may not be. So how can we just have that communication with them? What can a parent do to notice the signs?
Yeah, I wish I had printed that out with me. So there's like this emotion wheel, and this is it just shows like a bunch of different emotions. It shows them much more complex. I do think people say depressed. Like, I don't think they're trying to use it as a clinical term, but just a more form of extreme prolonged sadness. But they might just be unfamiliar with maybe a more specific term they can use. Or, for example, like I'm trying to think or understanding of the factors that contribute to those emotional states. Like, for example, if you're tired, it's going to make you feel sadder if you're sad. It's going to make you feel hungrier if you're hungry. It's going to make you feel angrier if you're angrier. So identifying what's contributing to that different emotion. But for the question about kind of what can single mother or single parents, I should say, do with in the sense of helping their children, I think as you did with your partner, providing your kids those resources, having that conversation with like, hey, these are some things that kind of help you build upon your understanding, and even my understanding as a parent, as emotional awareness, emotional health. I know a lot of kids, they feel they have to kind of, what's the word I'm trying to say? Pick up things and go with it. They accept labels, they accept things that people tell them. So if someone tells them, hey, you're just looking depressed right now, they're like, oh yeah, maybe I'm just depressed type of thing. And that's not in itself, that's harmless within itself, but then all the internalizing they may do of that, they might start looking at every little thing they're doing as a sign of them being, as affirmation of them being depressed. So getting them the resources, and I think the option to engage in therapy or to expand or have those conversations about emotions. Parents being honest and open about emotions with their kids. A lot of the kids are kind of going to just mirror what they see. So if it's a single mom, I can testify this myself. I had a single mother who busted her butt to provide for my sister and I. So she always had that mentality, always had to go, always had to go, always had to go, always had to move. And, just through my own personal life of watching my mother do that, it became something I kind of just ritualized and internalized. So it was something I started doing, rather knowingly liking it or not. That became my norm. I'm just used to seeing somebody wake up early morning, work all day, come home late, cope how they cope, go to bed, do it again. I unintentional, I woke up one day 26, like I'm basically living the life of a single mother and I got no children. I was working, left the house at 6 a.m. I get back home at 9 p.m. 5-6 days a week. I'm like, I ain't got no kids I'm coming home to. I don't know why.
Like, hold on, why I can't stop and breathe for a minute?
I feel like I always had that pressure. I had to be going. But I'm like, I don't have the same merit for the go as my mother went. But I was going just as my mother was going. No, that's not. My mother always had to do what she had to do, so I can not going to hold that on her. But
what I get from what you're saying is that they watch us, so a lot of the times they're picking up how we feel or whatever's going on with us, and they reflect that.
Exactly. Okay. They rather reflect that back to us, or they do these things where like they learn behaviors to respond to it. So let's say, oh, mom's angry. I know I should go to my room. And so then that puts them in a situation where then, let's say down the road, because let's say every time mom got angry, they went to their room. Down the road, whenever like they see their partner's angry, see their friends angry, there might be a nervousness or hesitant to have that dialogue about their friend's emotions. Yeah, so they might do as they've done. They kind of distance themselves from the emotions. Okay. So that's why maybe some individuals aren't the biggest fan of having those intense conversations. It's like, this is foreign for me, and the times I have done it, it was intense. So like I don't really like having those conversations.
And I know, and that is so true, because with my son, and I use him, I'm not saying his name, but you'll meet him in another video. I use him a lot because him and I had the biggest struggle, because I didn't understand ADHD. I didn't understand ODD. I didn't understand any of those letters. I just knew that he was always in my face, and I'm the introvert and extrovert. Like, I can do both, but then I need my own space. And his playfulness and jokes and everything, it was always in your face, and I didn't know how to handle it. So I didn't realize that he was matching my energy, and I matched energy. So it was like we were just always feeding off each other. And so I didn't realize when I was angry. I just knew that I would hear him tell me that what's wrong? But the way he said it, I'm like, hold on now. So it was just, I don't feel like nobody was stopping to understand or listen that the other one wasn't ready or whatever. And as a parent, it's our responsibility, I feel, to take control of the situation and realize that. So my goal with this is for you guys, if you're struggling with communication with your child or understanding emotions and feelings, like I said before, when we don't understand, we just need to learn, and we need to practice, because with practice becomes improvement. It just gets better and better. And that's what I feel like with my son, it's been better in communication, just realizing there are moments where we explode or we yell. It's not like it was before. It's not that bad, but we do yell, we get loud. But now he realizes it, and he'll move away. And now I see him distance himself as to where before he would come to me. And what I do like, and I don't mind saying, because I am transparent with whoever I'm speaking to, I do like that he says, Mom, you're getting a little aggressive, or you're getting a little hype. He notices it first, and then he'll tell me. There's times where I'm like, okay, yes, I sense it, I just need to walk away, so I'll just, walk away. But most of the time, because he is doing therapy consistently, I feel, because he's able to communicate and learn, he's the one catching those feelings and those emotions, and he now, will back out of my space because he doesn't want to keep it going. And with that, it's helpful to realize I am overwhelmed. I have a lot going on. My thoughts are everywhere. I need to just not have this conversation right now. And then you can move away. But yeah, I truly appreciate everything you have done, because I truly feel that it has made our relationship 10 times, 100 times better, because it gives him a way to learn how to communicate. And I think that, like you said, they're mirroring what's going on. And a lot of my environment was yelling. I say all the time, oh, I'm Puerto Rican, we're loud. I think that's an excuse. Because even in regular conversations or whatever, just practicing how to be loud is not always good, because then you do it at the wrong moments. And I felt like I was using that as an excuse, and now he knows how to express himself and say, that's not cool. Don't say that, or don't do that, or you're getting too loud, or you're whatever. He knows how to say that. So I know that therapy is truly working for my children, and it's something that I would so recommend for whoever, even adults.
Everybody.
Because I go to therapy with my partner. I just feel like it's something positive.
Yeah, for anybody who this could be applicable to, give yourself some grace, give yourself some time, give yourself some patience. We are all existing in this world that we're currently in, and it's a lot of uncertainties in many different ways. So as you're going through your day-to-day life, just give yourself that time that you are a human. As Miss Marie's expressed, sometimes you and your son may get into old, or might fall back to some maybe some arguments, things like that. Those hiccups are going to happen along the way of life. And I'm glad you highlighted though. You've seen the improvement of how intense it was before to now, and that's the goal of life. Per se, it's
to get better.
Exactly. We're like, for example, we're all going to have anger. We're going to experience. You've experienced anger before in your life, and odds are, unfortunately, you will experience it again in your life. But the way we respond to the anger and the way that we respond that contributes to the intensity we feel it, we have that type of control. I could get mad and let it get me going riled up and up and up, or like I said before, I could see that it's going somewhere. Let me just chill for a moment, giving myself that grace, everybody that grace, to kind of let the moment die down, and then we come back. What comes from those intense moments oftentimes is the most things that we want, and you know, especially when emotions arrive, when they first are there, as intense as they are, we overlook a lot of things. Best example I always think of is someone tripped over me one time when I was in school, and I didn't mind. I didn't know as much, so I just immediately thought they just kicked me, and like, so they're on the floor, but I wasn't paying attention. I just thought they kicked me, so it was jerking me. I was in middle school, mind you. I just kicked the kid when they're on the ground, and then like obviously I got in trouble for it. We had a whole conversation about it, and I was like, oh, he just tripped over me. Like my whole response would have been different if I would have saw the bigger picture of it. But me, I just perceived it as getting kicked, so I just kicked back. But give yourself that grace to see, all right, I'm not perfect in my understanding of everything, so let me chill out sometimes. Let me see everything for what it is. Just give yourself that time. Things tend to, what's what I'm trying to say? Emotions tend to die down, I think, within like, let's say 120 seconds. It's not, if you sit with it for that 120 seconds, the intensity goes down. So if something's going bad, something's getting crazy, give yourself that space, go breathe it out for about a good minute or two. And even though it might be intense in that moment, just kind of be committed to it. Remind yourself why you're kind of doing this deep breathing. You know, you're like, I'm just trying, not saying I'm trying to just get past the moment. You're not trying to avoid the emotion. You're coping with the emotion. I'm going to let the emotion come. I'm going to let the emotion go. And then I'm going to respond how I want to respond.
So as they say, so you could be clear-headed and then deal with whatever's going on?
Exactly. Okay. Yeah. And to kind of just get to my last point of those things is, you know, mentioning about your childhood experiences. Well, be wary of the things you normalize throughout your life. You know, we grow up in certain environments and certain things become routine set in place, and we just kind of accept that to be truth, for better or for worse. So then sometimes we go to certain places in life, that truth that we learned at a young age is no longer doing us any help. It can be just straight harming us at this point. You know, let's say, for example, something, I'm just going to use a random group of people. So like veterans, let's say. Veterans or police officers. There's a high domestic abuse in those relationships. So let's say a child is in a situation where they see that, that violence becomes normalized in their life. You know, regardless of if they think it's right or wrong, they're seeing it. They're exposed to it. They get desensitized to what aggression really can mean and signifies. So then they go out into the world. Someone makes them mad, they just do what they've been demonstrating, what they've been known, go out through their whole lives, and then you get to a point where they're an adult who's still doing the same things. You're like, oh, where's all this aggression, hostility come from? Things like that. And you're like, oh, well, this is what I kind of normalized as a kid. And, you know, then having to sit there and have that conversation with like, okay, but now as an adult, is that something that I still think has the same merit as it did as a kid? But, you know, that requires having that conversation with somebody who can reflect upon those things. But just be worried of things that we kind of accept and normalize and believe to be true. And seeing what they kind of do for us in our lives.
Definitely. I agree, because there's a lot of things that I've been taught. And it was a lot, because I went from birth parents to strangers I don't know. And so you pick up a bit of everybody. And it's like, how do I now identify what I believe in, who like what I fit in, and like it's just a lot. So I really agree with that, because I had to not only do faith building, personal development, self-dating, just a lot of work to see, is this me or is this what's given to me? Because a lot of times, like, we have a favorite, like people say, what's your favorite color? And you say, oh, blue or purple, because you don't want to be left out.
Exactly.
So it's like, is it really your favorite color? And it's, I mean, that might be simple and childish, but it's true. We pick up a lot of things that really do not belong to us, and we just claim it as our own.
With it, like,
And so that's the same thing for feelings and emotions. If you always been yelled at, or if you always been a yeller, or you've always been aggressive, like people around you, they've been aggressive, that's who you tend to be. Until like my son and my all my children right now are doing therapy. They have learned other ways.
Exactly.
So now they're not wrapped up in I'm just an angry person, you know, that because that's not good.
Not at all.
Being of color too, like
yeah,
you don't want to be of color, angry and aggressive, and especially in Texas, there's a lot of yes ma'am, yes sir, and learning manners. Which is good to have.
They quick to throw something on you to give you justification for whatever they want to do.
Yeah, so I just appreciate them learning how to communicate that and express I'm not feeling, because that's another part of learning how to speak up for yourself. Just learning how to tell people I'm not all right now, and learn just I want to put up something for you guys to see more words, and you can Google it. More feelings, titles to feelings, like the proper name, because you want to express: is it more than sadness? Is it happiness? Like, am I really okay? I don't want you to say. Somebody says to you, how are you? And because we feel the way we feel, they don't have time to listen. We're going to say good. And then that just becomes our identity. We're good. We're always good.
Always perfect. Yeah, that's not true. A lot of us aren't. You know?
A lot of us is one hair away from losing our minds.
Yep. And
so we just got to express that. And I'm learning that not only with the kids being in another relationship right now, it is two different two different personalities, two different forms of communication, and one, he's very direct and I'm emotional. I'm thinking everybody's around the bush type of thing. So yeah, just learning how to say, hey, I'm not good right now, or I just need some time, or expressing how you feel in the moment, but doing it in the right way so that they can understand. It's therapy is very helpful.
It is.
Because I learned some stuff even for myself, and I'm grown. I'm old. I'm not grown. I'm not done growing, but I'm an adult, and just learning this stuff is amazing to me.
Yeah, and it's self-mastery. We're learning a lot about ourselves in that exploration, and I feel like that's just a never-ending well you could go down. How do I respond to things? How are my emotions to things? How have I handled my emotions in my past? I know we spoke when we first began the sessions about the things you were kind of doing to attend to your own peace and protecting that.
Yes.
And then, just having the lived experience of what has been beneficial for you, what hasn't been beneficial for you. For your children, I could say, I'm thankful to say that through the work that they're doing and the conversations I'm having with them, they are starting to put, to test the things that we have spoken about. It would have been different if I just gave them these words and they just did nothing with them. Now they're, like you said, actively engaging in those things. And once you see the benefit of it, odds are you're going to kind of want to go towards what's beneficial for you, especially once you remember what's on, or remember another way you respond to the emotions. Used to get mad. I used to go punch walls and scream at the world. That never really did too much. All that made me do was I get 5 minutes of yelling and then I'm still mad. Did nothing to process the anger. Now being in this place where you can communicate it. You know how to cope with the emotion. Now there's a lot less fear and intensity of the emotions. Emotions aren't really scary if you don't know how to really cope with them. Especially like, example, overwhelmed. If you're feeling overwhelmed, and the mind is a crazy thing. When we feel overwhelmed, it makes us feel like we need to do more things, like do the less overwhelmed, which makes no sense when you think about it. Overwhelmed is we have too much on our plate. I'm like, I gotta do more. You know what I'm saying? The mind is a trick sometimes.
Like you don't feel okay with being still. Yeah.
But that's what we need when we're feeling overwhelmed. I just need a moment to like woosah my head for a moment. But our mind is like, no, we gotta think this, we gotta think that. But that's our mind's fear response to this emotion. It's trying to avoid the emotion. How do we make this go away? How do I make this go away? We're not making the emotion go away. We're coping with the emotion. Because once we learn to cope with that intensity, the intensity over time becomes less and less intense.
Oh, wow.
Think of, I'm trying to think of the best way I used to explain this. Imagine somebody who wants to talk all day when you see them, right? And they come talk, no, not right now, put them away. Next day, hey, actually, no, right now. Right? So you do that for a week or two. The moment you see them, they're going to want to spill out everything that they've been waiting to tell you for that week or two. Now imagine that as an emotion. If I'm feeling angry about something, every time I get intense, I just, no, I can't feel that anger. I can't deal with that anger. When I experience my anger, it's going to be very intense. Because it's not only my anger from the incident that happened a week ago, it's about what happened 4 days ago, 3 days ago, 2 days ago, yesterday, an hour ago. Now my anger is trying to communicate all of those experiences. And it's overwhelming because now instead of it being one thing I'm trying to cope with, I'm trying to cope with 6. I have a hard time coping with one thing. How the heck am I going to cope with 6 things?
Yes.
So being able to identify that and be like, all right, let me cope with this for a moment. And then have a conversation, do what I need to do to move forward with the emotion, and then go on. Because like over time, the intensity of the emotion is not as bad because you have your ability to respond to it.
Yeah.
He's on that line.
So, yeah. I like that. And it's true. Noticing your emotions, not ignoring them. Learning how to cope with them and deal with them. Handling them before they handle you. I feel like it's very important. So, yeah, is there anything else that we should be?
I think that, it was a great conversation. Once again, I appreciate you having me on.
Oh, no, I thank you for doing this because I really, honestly, I learn a lot from, I love having conversations with people because I learn a lot from it. So I do appreciate it. And I pray that you guys have received something from this message and take something away. And if you have, leave it down below and share it with me. If you'd like to see more, leave it down below, share it with me so I know. But I am truly grateful for your time because I know that you're truly busy. And I'm truly grateful for your time, for you guys listening in and just spending time with me. If there's anything else that you would like to know or would like for me to do, just leave it down below and I'll read it and I'll respond to you. And maybe that can be another video. But yeah, this has been so informative and I would love to continue these videos for you because I think it is important for us. Children are learning, so they can't be blamed because they are mirrors and they do mock. Adults, and being very transparent, real, if you have issues with communicating and telling people how you feel or expressing that, because as you can see, me doing this video, I get caught up in my words or my thoughts and they don't come out right. Imagine that when you're upset or angry, not knowing how to communicate. This is me practicing over years of how to do this so that I can feel comfortable sitting here with you guys, giving you guys this information without a script. So if you don't know, again, please just speak up, seek the help, learn it, practice it, put it into, and like Mr. Jordan said, give yourself some grace because you are bound to backslide, mess up, fall, but it's how you get up and how you dust yourself off and say, I was wrong. Sometimes we got to admit, apologize, or have a conversation with the person that hurt you the right way. Because oftentimes when we're hurt, we see nothing but red. And sometimes they don't realize that they hurt you. My kids, sometimes they don't realize they're in my face and in my space and I'm overwhelmed and they need to just back up. So sometimes I do need to express to them, I just need some time right now. And I didn't know how to do that back then. I just matched energy. So they were hyped, I was hyped, they were aggressive because I was mad, and it was just a cycle that'll keep going. So parents, just remember that we are leaders. No matter what you think about yourself, you are a leader, you're leading somebody or you're following, and you're also a teacher. We teach people that are watching, our children, other people, we teach them not only what to do or say, but we teach them how to treat us. So if you don't know how to treat yourself or handle yourself when you're upset, you're not going to be able to tell somebody you need time. Or, yes, I would like a hug right now. You're not going to be able to express things to them and teach them how to treat you if you don't know what you're feeling inside and how to label it. So I just honestly, before I end, you guys, if you haven't done therapy and you're thinking about it, please speak to somebody. If you're living at home with a parent and you would like to start therapy or some form of counseling, whatever, have that conversation with your parents. I think a lot of times we're afraid to have conversations and we don't have it, and just thinking and believing, because it was never like, in my family, it was never like, oh, you can't do it. It was just, we didn't talk about it. So I feel like if somebody would have had a conversation, it might have been something that we could have done. So if you feel safe and comfortable having the conversation, have the conversation with your parent. Have the conversation with a teacher or a counselor. Or speak up and say, I would love to have some therapy, or how can I go about it? Speak up for yourself and see where that goes. But if you don't feel safe, I'm not going to tell you, to go ahead and do that, because I know I didn't feel safe when I was younger. So that it's up to you and how you feel. If that's something that you want to do, please speak up for yourself and get you some therapy. And adults, it's not shameful. It's not for the crazy. It's not for the white people, as we were told. It's seriously, therapy is for everybody. I'm a coach and I have a coach. I'm an adult and I go to therapy. So it's a conversation that I have with my children, and Mr. Jordan became their therapist because they agreed to do therapy. So you guys, I pray that until next time, you are blessed. And like I say, You don't deserve any abuse. If you're being abused, please don't believe the lies. You don't deserve it. It is not your fault. And I pray that you get some help and begin your healing process. And for those of you listening that are just, going on your healing journey, be open to the blessings that are coming your way, because we all deserve the life that we desire. As long as you put the work and effort and time it takes to get that life, you can have it. You guys, I thank you for joining me, and until next time, bye.